So our next and final guest is Ron Weitzman. Thank you very much for being here. Ron is president of Water Plus, another strong group of advocates for water and getting it here. And Water Plus has also been very engaged and very active with the CPUC process with regards to the application that California American Water has on file. And Ron's going to share some of that experience and that process with us as well. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. So Ron, if you would give us a little introduction of who you are, some of your experience and career history, that'd be great.
Thank you, Carmelita. I've been on the peninsula, I think, now 43 years, and I'm a professor. Most of my adult life I've spent on faculties of universities in the United States and a few foreign countries. My older daughter, I have two daughters, had two daughters. My older daughter lives in Wisconsin now. My younger daughter, when their children would introduce herself, say, "My name is Karen, and I have a sister named Leora." She'd always say it that way. She always had to mention her sister. Yeah. I'm bringing that up now because my wife tells me whenever I introduce myself in a public setting, I should tell people I have hemifacial spasm. So I'm Ron Weitzman, and I have hemifacial spasm. Yeah. I don't notice it when it happens, except when I'm talking to other people, and I'm afraid, that it might bother them, so that's why I say it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Been involved, my wife and I have been involved in volunteer work most of our adult lives, and so Public Water Now is something that gets our appreciation, our endorsement. It actually is a spin-off from Water Plus. I formed a committee to look into getting an initiative on a public agency to purchase Cal-Am, and at their first meeting of the committee, they decided to form an organization that would concentrate solely on purchasing Cal-Am, and they further made the decision that the public agency would be the Water Management District. And meanwhile, while they're doing that, Water Plus has been very, very busy. We've been meeting every week for almost 3 years now, every Monday morning, 9 o'clock. And there are plenty of things in our water world to concern us. Right now, the Public Utilities Commission is the center of our focus, as Carmelita said. And it's keeping me busy hundreds of hours a month. And we have a small core group of about 9 people, but our meetings are open. All of our meetings are open. We believe in and practice transparency. I personally think secrecy is a sign of weakness, and I do not like to practice it. So don't tell me anything you don't want other people to know. And so we let out all our ideas. We have an agenda, and we have a report of our meetings where we report everything. Right. The good and the bad and the ugly. Right. So I think that what I'd really like to talk about, if you could ask me any questions you like anytime, is the commentary I wrote for the Herald that was in last Friday's paper. It proposes a third option to our water supply. Cal-Am has proposed currently now, and is the project that is proposing before the Public Utilities Commission, that we have 19 parties to, and we've been meeting almost weekly or more than weekly on one way or for one aspect of the project or another. It has 2 options. One is desalination only, and the desalination plant, I'm sure you all know this, would be at Moss Landing. And the other is desalination, about 2/3 desalination, plus 1/3 groundwater replenishment. And that would be at Marina too. They're both sites are in Marina. I had opposed, and I think a lot of people have been following what I've been writing in the Herald, groundwater replenishment very strenuously until last Tuesday. And then when I had an epiphany. And I think epiphanies are kind of fun to talk about because they don't come often. And I think I've been the strongest opponent of groundwater replenishment. And I made enemies, I think, among environmentalists, although I have a history of being an environmentalist. So The biggest reason that I was against groundwater replenishment was that the source of the water that it was going to process for drinking was going to be our sewer water from the Monterey Peninsula, and also from elsewhere in the county. Most of it from elsewhere, North County and Salinas area. The problem with that is that the farmers have asserted water rights. They have asserted those rights, and they plan to fight for those rights. That, in the last water project proposed, it was water rights that was the reason that we could all understand that it might have failed. I mean, there are other reasons we could conjecture about, but you certainly need the rights to the water that you plan to use, and they were challenged in court, and the challengers prevailed. So they're right now in appellate court, but the project's been put aside for the new project with its two options. Now, the problem with the groundwater replenishment option, as I thought, was that it relied on sewer water. It was supposed to produce 3,500 acre-feet a year, and Cal-Am the remainder of about total of 10,000 acre-feet. What they've done, I guess, partly, I hope, as a result of my opposition, and certainly as a result of the opposition of the farming community, is move away from using treated sewer water. The problem with that is that not only that the farmers have the rights, but if they could use the excess water that the Pollution Control Agency was going to use in the winter, if they could put that in a storage tank, they could use that water in the summer, all of it. So one of the things I proposed in this third option is that we build a storage facility for the water, that's the excess treated sewer water in the winter, so that the farmers could use it in the summer. So that way we still are not wasting anything. We're recycling all our water from that source. Meanwhile, the Pollution Control Agency has gone out to get its source water from elsewhere in the Salinas Valley. Drainage ditches, runoff, urban runoff, industrial runoff. There are problems with these sources of water. They'll all have to pass through the California Department of Public Health and be approved by it. I'm concerned about that. I've specified some of those problems in my column, in my commentary, but I'm taking the position that it would never happen if it didn't have that approval. And one of the things I really like about the Pollution Control Agency is their motivation. They are highly motivated. In fact, they said at the session last Tuesday at Oldenmeyer Center on their EIR that if they don't become part of the Cal-Am project, they're prepared to go it on their own. That was one of the things that led to my epiphany. The other was they're moving away from treated sewer water to other source water. Those two things made it look good enough to me to support, better than good. So they would, and I'm proposing not just a 3,500 acre-feet here, I'm proposing that they supply fully half the water. So more water. The more water they could supply, the more economies of scale they could take benefit of, the lower the cost would be per acre foot and lower the cost of our bills. So, and the other half I'm proposing come from the desalination plant that Nader Aga's proposed at Moss Landing. And the reason I'm proposing that is not that I know Nader Aga is a friend of mine, I'll admit that, but that isn't the reason I'm proposing it. The reason I'm proposing is that he has the working capital to build the project. Nobody else who has any interest in doing it has that capital. And also he has the same kind of motivation the Water Management District, the Pollution Control Agency has. I wish I could see that motivation in the Water Management District, then Ron Cohn would have to do what he's doing. But they have not shown that motivation, and Cal-Am has been dragged into it. It's been told by the Public Utilities Commission to do it. And they figure if they're going to do it, they're going to do as Ron Cohn said, a gold-plated project where they're going to make a lot of profit. It's going to cost a lot of money. The more money the project costs, the more profit they make. And so their profit would increase about 3 times what it is now when this project is completed, if they get everything they want. In fact, if the project were, if the Pollution Control Agency and Nader Aga's project built, he could build it, and then he would sell it to a public agency. The public agency bought it and ran it, and the Pollution Control Agency, which is a public agency, paid for and ran its project. The total project would cost over $700 million less than Cal Am's project was built out the way they proposed it,
Wow.
all desal, over 30 years. That's an enormous amount of money. We've complained about Solendra's solar, $500 million for the whole country. This is over $700 million just little Monterey,
Right.
Monterey Peninsula. So that's a lot of money to be sucked out of our community from our businesses, our hotels, our restaurants, our plumbers, our carpenters, our builders, everybody. So that's why I made that proposal, and I think it's good for them. Also, part of that proposal would be building a storage facility for the excess treated sewer water in the winter, so farmers could have it in the summer. So there would be the advantages of this would be lower cost, no fighting between the two sides of the Monterey Peninsula, and public control. We would be owning what we were spending our money on. Mm-hmm. And the people who would be running these projects would be elected people from our community. Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, well, it sounds great, and I like your perspective and how you have managed to come mm-hmm. around, mm-hmm. due process, your own thinking, and I think that's what's very critical with everything that's going on, that people remain open, mm-hmm. Good, bad, or indifferent, mm-hmm. which I think you really, really did. Mm-hmm. You had formed an opinion, and I know you read a lot of information mm-hmm. as well as writing yourself mm-hmm. and doing research and what have you, and you were able to come to a different conclusion, which I think mm-hmm. is phenomenal.
Well, thank
really
you.
Is.
Well, and I also appreciate the Pollution Control Agency. They're really highly motivated,
yeah, they
and they have moved.
Yeah.
And I don't see much movement anywhere else.
Yeah, they're very well operated and ran mm-hmm. Organization. I wanted to ask you about, what's your perspective? We read in the paper Cal Am admitting that they're not going to make that cease and desist order date. What do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen to help, the cliff that we're falling over now and the impact, the negative impact that's going to have up to that point?
Right now, that's a disaster. Mm-hmm. Just we're looking in the face of a disaster. January 1st, 2017, if the State Water Board imposes its cease and desist order, we're going to have 70% less water than we have now. Right. Imagine that. The hotels wouldn't be able to operate because they would have lower priority than we would for public health reasons, than residents would. Right. Businesses would suffer. Our tourist industry would be dead. Mm-hmm. It's not doing so well now. It would be dead then. Mm-hmm. And so the strategy, Cal Am has admitted it cannot meet the deadline. Right. So the strategy of the mayor's group and I believe the Water Management District too, mm-hmm. is if we can't get they're trying to push the Cal Am project, and the county are all trying to push the Cal Am project through, but they know that there are problems, there are serious problems, legal problems being some of the largest, but there are engineering problems too, mm-hmm. physical problems, that even if the law allows them to do that, nature may not. They're really trying to make it look, it's not just an appearance, but they want to have whatever they're doing have the appearance of due diligence sufficiently to persuade the State Water Board to delay its cease and desist order until mm-hmm. something happens, if not the current project, something else. Mm-hmm. We don't know if that's going to happen, and the pollution and the State Water Board has said it's not going to make any decision about delaying, at least for a year and a half.
Right, right.
Because they think none of the projects that have been proposed are sufficiently far ahead for them to say, okay, you're showing progress, and we'll delay it.
Right.
And I don't believe, this current project's being delayed so much. Every deadline has been moved ahead, sometimes 8 months, right. That it doesn't look as though even by 2 years from now we'll be much further along than we are now if we continue in this direction. That's why I proposed the third option. It's feasible. The Pollution Control Agency, if it can get the funding, is willing to go it alone, and Nader is willing to go it alone if he could arrange his financing to allow it.
Right.
And both have chances to do that.
Right. The groundwater replenishment project, their completion date is towards the end of 2016. Mm-hmm. So And how many acre feet are they planning?
They're planning 3,500, but I've talked to them after that meeting last Tuesday. They can do in fact, they could do 14,000.
Yeah, I know.
So I've asked them to plan for a bigger one. They could, right now, they could say as part of CalAd's project, they'll do 3,500. But I've asked them to plan for at least 5,000.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
And I think they could plan for even more than that, because they may need more. If they need to get diluent water from the Carmel River, then they're going to have to provide more treated water to balance that.
Right. Well, that sounds pretty hopeful if there's some willingness there.
Yes, thank you.
So let's talk about your participation with the CPUC hearings.
Oh, boy.
How many interveners are there?
There are 19 interveners. About half of them are environmentalists. So, and I am an environmentalist too, but different from the others, I'm concerned about the cost of water, and the others are not. That's not their interest. So, as a ratepayer advocate, what basically, I'm for as much water as we possibly can get for as little cost.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
I mean, the environment is other. We don't have to worry about the environment. Half of the people there, the parties, are environmentalists. So, but I'm not against them. That's not my primary interest. And I think now with our supporting groundwater replenishment, some of them should come around to support our position.
There was one of the very first hearings at the PUC I found rather interesting in that all the questions were sent out beforehand, and responses were written and submitted, and then there was the actual testimony.
Oh, was that the testimony?
Yes.
Yeah, they made us write our questions and answers too. That was kind of fun, because my business in psychology is asking and answering questions.
Right.
And analyzing the answers.
Yeah.
So, I enjoyed that. That was fun. And then after that, we had an evidential hearing where we were cross-examined on our testimony.
Right.
They called that testimony. Supposedly someone else asked us questions, and we answered them, but essentially we all asked ourselves questions.
Right.
And answers. So it's a question and answer format.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a lot of fun. I was kind of not looking forward too much to being cross-examined. We got up there, and I was up, I think, on that stand for about 10 minutes. That was it.
Yeah.
It took hours to get to San Francisco and back. It was hardly worth it. But I think the Public Utilities Commission goes through very rigid procedures. I don't have the same attitude other people have to CalAm. I see CalAm as a business out there simply to make money. I don't hate it. If I were in their business, I'd probably do exactly what they're doing. I think they have very good people working for them, very nice people, but they have to do what they have to do. It's I think of it's a little like CalAm's got its in water. CalAm should not be in water supply. A little bit like the ugly duckling. They're in the wrong business. I mean, if they're a swan, they should be a swan, and they should deliver. They should convey our water, but not supply it. The supply is too big a project for them. It's something they're not used to, and I don't know if they really want it. They've been dragged into it. If they do it, they want to make as much money as they can on it. They're taking a lot of risks. They're going to uncharted territory for them, and I can understand their position. You have to understand your opposition if you have any chance at all of competing with it.
Right, right.
So anyway, I do not have any, my own feelings are not anti-CalAm. I just think that our community has to get its act together.
Right, right. So what's your opinion of the initiative that is going to be coming forward?
Oh, well, I support the initiative. I endorse it. I think it's wonderful that Ron Cohen has the leadership skills and the organizational skills to go ahead with it. And he has a good group of enthusiastic and able people supporting him. The only problem I have, is that I don't have enough time to help. I'm so busy with the California Public Utilities Commission.
Right,
right. They're sucking all my energy and time right now.
Good.
In fact, I'm doing, because our attorney's very busy doing other things right now, I'm sort of not being a lawyer, doing legal briefs. and admitting when I write them an attorney.
What's coming up with the PUC as far as other public hearings?
Right now, the PUC's engaged, the parties to the proceeding are engaged with the PUC in confidential settlement meetings. They've been there's been 2 requests for extensions. The second one is a request now for an extension to the 31st of July. The judge has been out of town through today, so he'll probably grant it. So, but the next legal involvement that the CPUC is requesting us to become involved in is won't take place till next February.
Oh, wow.
So it'll have to do with the well, I mean that's where it involved lawyers.
Right.
All the parties have lawyers that work all the time, even the settlement meetings. But where we'll really need a lawyer will be next February and maybe next April even. So things are delayed that way. But other things are going on. There are new hearings about the settlement proceedings, and you know, there are activities that are. We're busy. We're meeting over, if not in person, telephonically, twice a week maybe now, and it'll probably continue that way for months. But as far as official big changes, you know, milestones, the next one's February, and then the one after that's April next year. Wow. The Cal-Am has been delayed in its testing of its water of its wells for water supply because of for environmental reasons till November. And the farmers think the hydrologist for the farming community thinks they're going to need it maybe up to 2 years worth of testing. So that project does not look as though it's on greased skids. Yeah,
I know the farming community has pretty much demanded 2 years.
Yes.
And then the draft EIR, that's been also pushed out a little bit.
Yeah, that's pushed off to next February.
Yeah.
That was one of the delays. And then the hearing, the briefs on that are April. So those are the two main, the two next things. And then the EIR is going to be a very interesting document because there are a lot of new things in this project that weren't in the regional project, mainly involving the seaside aquifer.
Yeah, it changes every day.
Yeah.
Almost. We're towards the end of our time here, but before we go, the Mayor's Water Authority, JPA, they worked so hard on the governance issue of this entire project and what have you. And from what I was able to observe, there was some pushback from Cal-Am. In your opinion, do you think the structure that the JPA created was too stiff, too tight?
No, it was quite loose. I thought they were quite generous. The only substantive authority they really were seeking was authority to make the decision as to whether groundwater replenishment would be included in the project. And Cal-Am's pushed back on that quite hard at the meeting that we had in San Francisco, I think was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, on groundwater replenishment. Cal-Am said that it's going to treat that project as though it were its own project and seek to get profit on it, just the way it would get profit on any other capital improvement project.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ron, for being with us today. Appreciate all the information that you've provided.